My guest today is Nick Hughes. He is the founder and CEO of Founders Live. Founders Live is a global entrepreneur network that helps inspire, educate, and entertain entrepreneurs around the world. Nick is a successful entrepreneur. He previously founded the mobile payment startup Seconds and helped start CoinMe, a company built around expanding Bitcoin and digital transactions. Thanks for being on our show today, Nick.
Hey, thank you so much. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I know you're a very busy person, so I do want to thank you and appreciate the valuable time and insights that you're going to share with all the listeners. And to start this off, I would like to ask you, tell some of the audience members a little bit about yourself, how you started, what's going on with you today, what's going on.
Yeah. I'm in Seattle. I'm currently located in Seattle, but I've been traveling around, which we can touch on after this. But I've been a founder for a while, and here in the startup ecosystem that is now Seattle, really growing and pretty dense. But my first company, which you had talked about, that was called Seconds. It was mobile payments, and that was roughly about 2011 when I started that, and that kind of came and went. That wasn't a crazy breakout success. So I learned a lot about really starting not only a technology company, but just a small business in general, a startup. And through that experience, and then into roughly about 2014, was actually when I put on the very first event, which was not called Founders Live at the time, but basically we just gathered people together from the globe, from the startup community here in Seattle, and wanted to have a fun time and create a pitch competition. And so the format, which was true then, and it's still true now, which is a side note, I'm sitting here right now and we actually have our Founders Live Seattle event later on tonight. There will be 300-400 people gathered in our space. It's gonna be a really great time. But back then, March of 2014, was when I put on the very first event. And we pre-selected 5 early stage companies. They each only had 99 seconds to pitch.
Wow.
And then 4 minutes of Q&A immediately after that from the audience, kind of on town hall style.
Yeah.
And then at the end, the crowd votes on a winner. So slightly similar to kind of like a Shark Tank, but in our own way. And then the winner was crowned, and everyone had a good time. And so I just kept putting that event on in Seattle for like 2.5 years, and it just seemed to go really well. And I then realized that there's a larger opportunity for Founders Live, which I can dive into. But I started Founders Live in 2016, and I definitely want to touch on the uniqueness of that. But basically, I've been running Founders Live full time since 2016. And we're spreading around the world in 50 plus cities, and it's all great.
Wow.
But I'm gonna stop here just so we can chat. But definitely we can get into what exactly is Founders Live going forward.
Yeah, it sounds like you're having a blast if you're able to travel all this over the world, really, and do what you've kind of created, right? And bring everyone together with the same kind of goal, right?
Oh,
to help
absolutely.
support this ecosystem. So,
Absolutely.
So I do want to take a step back and really find out, like, did you go to school studying like entrepreneurship, business, and what was your first kind of crack at business? Like, did you work in the industries before you started your first startup?
So good question. And I believe that this is true for more entrepreneurs than you probably know. But what I studied was absolutely opposite of what I'm doing now, which, at least I have a 4-year degree, but, so I actually, amazingly, my first career, it was shorter, but my first career was actually I was a strength coach and a trainer. And so previously I was an athlete, and then going, through college, realizing like, okay, I'm not going to be a professional. So the best thing next to that was, why not I learn how to work with individuals on a professional level as well as in the general population. So I studied exercise physiology and biomechanics, and really became knowledgeable in the industry of physical movement, training, strength and conditioning. And, my very first job out of college was with the Seattle Sonics and Storm. So Sonics were here at the time. This is
Nice.
before they left. I was literally training NBA players and then WNBA players
Yeah.
as a strength coach. And then I, for about 5-6 years was in the fitness industry, whether it was working with athletes or, as at a health club or whatnot. And, what was crazy is this is like why I believe entrepreneurship is actually it's organic, and also sometimes in our DNA is I was always trying to create something new and build. Is almost like in that industry, it's like, this is what we do. And when you try to get too creative and innovative around these like general things, that whether you're a trainer at a health club or a strength coach for a team, there's not a lot of creative leeway. And I started to realize, like, okay, I'm way too creative and way too out there. And also I just had some issues with the industry, but I started to self-study through just reading about technology, reading about business, getting around other things. And I didn't even realize there's like a startup, community and, in pockets of all these cities. Now I'm like center of it almost, but I did not know this. And so, yeah, I just did a ton of self-study and, looking at like how did Facebook grow? How did Microsoft grow at the time? How did Google, and like realizing like, technology and understanding networks and understanding, all these things. And so there was a lot of self-study, and I think then trial and error. And so that's when I started probably, I was about 27, 28, started to kind of I'm using air quotes, play startup. And so for about 3 or 4 years, I played startup with a few people, and we thought that we were building something. And that's when in 2011 was, I transitioned to a whole new team and business,
That's
but that's
amazing.
when I started my first company. So a lot of trial and error. And that's the lesson I would tell everyone is, yeah, sure. Education is, formal education is important in some ways, but real world, do it yourself, just every single day, learn and study and find new people to talk to is probably even more applicable.
No, I totally get where you're coming from, because even in my DNA, I mean, I studied finance and I went into sales, and I've been in
Hmm.
sales even today, this day. I love the sales end of things more than the actual business, but it's because I've always done sales, right? But I had to learn the hard way in terms of how to grow a business and scale, etc.
Right.
But
And so, this might be a really good angle to take. I've done a lot of introspection on, what we're building and why, and what I created and why. And I think part of my experience, like, I've always been a big thinker. I've always been someone that wants to, you know, one of the issues was when I was training people, you're impacting one person at a
yeah,
time.
yeah,
And, that's great. It's, kind of an intimate, just experience, and you're helping someone either lose weight or achieve goals and maybe reach a professional level, performance. But I wanted to impact millions of people. And I think when I realized that, and then I was like, wait, how do you do that? And I realized not only before 2011, but specifically in 2014, there was no general global system and platform to take people that are promising and want to reach higher levels to help them get there. It was way too fragmented. I just thought, like, okay, I guess I'm in Seattle. I'll go to some networking events and try to like osmosis, try to like figure it out. But through that process, I realized that there are possibly billions of people around the world that can and should be entrepreneurs, whether they're small business or scaling a venture scale business. They just haven't had the right environment, community, and information and education in an environment that helps them move forward. And that's why I started Founders Live.
no, that's amazing. I mean, there's definitely a need. There's definitely there's a lot of people looking for sure, and everyone wants to be a part of something, right? Either a hobby or business or whatever career, right, path. So everyone wants to be a part of something that they believe in, and that's what
Mm-hmm.
your tribe is, right? So it's great to hear that you're doing something and you're impacting so many other people's lives and helping them, support them, right? To
Yeah.
do what they always wanted to, but never really thought they could do it themselves, right? So building a community of people like-minded. Um, so another question I was going to ask you is, um, did you ever have like people that you had coaches or mentors to support you throughout these years to get to starting your own, businesses?
Yes, very much. I would say so. I have currently, when I started, so let's go back to 2011. I mean, what I would say my first real startup and company, I brought a few individuals around as advisors, and like you can create essentially a board of advisors. They can sign a agreement, and you might give them a little bit of equity. And so I'd found some in that way, but those were, you know, advisors are hard. I mean, you really got to find the right. It has to be the right fit. This person needs to commit to some consistent effort. If you're going to bring them on as an advisor, you definitely are looking for someone that can give you like time every month and all that. So that was lightweight. But I would right now, I have the most coaches and advisors around me as I've ever had, and I will say there's specifically three that I think are very important. I see two people that are more on the therapist side that are coaches. So they're almost like, one person he's a man, and he is a therapist, a psychotherapist. And so I started seeing him about 2 years ago. Some for relationship stuff, some for, I realized, like, it was funny, the first uh, um first session we had, I sit down and he lets me understand that some very significant people from the city of Seattle as founders and executives like sit in the chair that I was sitting in.
Yeah.
And so I quickly realized it wasn't going to be a therapist for like, oh, emotional relationship stuff. It was actually going to be a lot more around what he calls a mindfulness coach and a therapist to understand the bigger picture
Yeah.
and understand, our capabilities and possibilities, and just amazing guy. So I have that individual around me. I have now, through my travels, I met a woman that is a executive coach. She works with a lot of entrepreneurs, really to help them reach their next level and just figure their stuff out. And so we talk twice a month. And so I've got two kind of coaches in that direction that are slash therapists slash executive coaches. And that is so important to be able to be honest with people and work through your challenges, whether it's co-founders, financial, growth, things are going too fast. What do I do? That sort of thing. And then the last one, I have I would call him more of a business coach slash scaling up coach. And that's his focus. And he works with, he works with more established companies, but he's been really working with me on some unique things around as a company and startup gets going. As a founder, just had a conversation with him yesterday, and oh my gosh, like, just the structure of how you like get processes in place, how do you get organized, how are you
Yeah.
sorting out your 3-year goals and milestones, and how do we get there. And I'm telling you that this individual is probably one of the main reasons why I am, or Founders Live is where it's at right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
that's
definitely, like, I would say anyone listening to this, get your coaches around you right now.
yeah. I think the most important thing is when you're in a business, you need different perspectives, right? People looking in gives you so much other insights, especially ones that have been successful, right? Or exited, or have been able to scale it to 8 or 9 figures, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially if that's what your goal is, right? If your goal is really to really enhance and impact a large audience, I mean, there's people that can really support you and guide you throughout the whole journey, right? So it's always good to reach out for sure.
Well,
But
and it's I'm a sole founder, and my guess is a lot of small businesses might just be they're, the only owner or sole founder. And, it can be quite lonely, and it's challenging when you don't have a business partner there to bounce ideas off of, and or like, share the burden and things. And so especially as a sole founder or, business owner, it's your responsibility to surround yourself with the team that's going to be there for the phone calls that you need to make when it's just like, what do I do next, to, sharing the possibly the celebration, and like, hey, you want to just share your big success of that day or that week. 100%, it's important to have these individuals around you for the good times and the bad.
No, that's amazing. So growing up, did you ever, like, was this something you always wanted to do for yourself? Like, it sounds like you were great, even before doing the startup, like working for Seattle Supersonics, right? Or Sonic
Yeah.
and WNBA, like all that stuff sounded like a great gig, right? But what did you really want to do growing up? Or did you follow your path? And are you living your dream now? Like,
Uh, well, yeah, for sure. I would say, living my dream for sure. What's so weird, back in the day, growing up, I just played sports and I was an athlete.
yeah,
I can't say that I thought about creating, global businesses, and as a youth, I can't say I did. I could say that I was definitely more of a sports fan, and it would have been tremendous. It'd have been so cool to be a professional athlete, just knowing that that's the way I grew up. But I will say that fairly quickly, I started to, I realized I thought different. I think bigger. I, I've never been satisfied with the status quo. And I
mm,
think that's the indications, like when you're, a youth or in high school, it's not like you're sitting there, because it's hard to comprehend some of the things that are going on
yeah,
in technology and business as an adult, right? So, they don't fully understand yet what it really means to actually create a global movement, or a platform, technology, a company. But I think in general, you can look at, there's certain individuals that just think differently. Like when everyone goes to the right, people go to the left, and they don't assimilate in, they just, they see through the fog and realize like there's better ways to do things, and we don't have to just follow the crowd. And I think that that's what I started to understand probably in late high school and then going into college.
mm,
And the first manifestation of that was as I followed my first passion, which was, physical, just, training and athletics, and pursuit of excellence. And that was in the physical realm. And when I realized that there was even things bigger, and I started to really study, like, wait, you can create something that spreads around the world. You can create something that essentially has no cap on reaching people, as well as the financial aspect that can be created. That's where I went this direction towards entrepreneurship, and it is my passion 100%. I think that the similarities are helping people improve their life physically and wellness in one side, and now I've turned that into helping and leading people create a better life in general, holistically, for business, for social, for them independently, and wealth generation. Our goal is, I would like to see billions of people grow businesses around the world. I think that that's going to be a good place to be.
no, that's amazing. So if you don't mind sharing some of the challenges or mistakes that you've made over the years, because you've been in, two different type of segments, right? The health and wellness, and also the startup, right? Tech. Um, Obviously nothing is as rosy as it sounds, right? So if you can share some of the turbulations or mistakes that you've made.
Oh man, there's so many. There's so many. I'd say the first one would be, you for sure don't. I don't care who you are. You do not know it all, and more importantly, you know very little. And so opening your ears totally, and basically listening to the market. Whenever you create a new concept, if you're creating a startup, you're bringing something to market, most likely it's new. um, do as much customer development, market research, and testing on a light level, cheapest as possible, quickest as possible, ever. And so what that means is you don't have the whole like, well, it's going to be this, that, and whatever, and I know everything, so I'm just going to create the technology or create the company and just slam it into the market. That's a very rookie mistake. And the other side, so flip that over and actually listen, like really listen to where the market's pointing, what they use and how they use it, what are their problems and why, and what sort of solutions would be there. And so that listening, I think it took me a long time to really figure that out.
Hmm.
But the more you listen as a founder and business owner, the better place you're going to be. So that's number one. um, I would say number two is and a lot of people might be like me, but it's realizing that it's going to take so much longer than you thought. And when you're a founder that just wants to keep, you're pushing hard, you want things to happen quickly, it it can be very frustrating to go through the process. And when you're not really understanding, it's going to take longer than you set out. And some people say it's going to be twice as long. Well, I don't know, but I'm telling you, like, I'm in a 10-year overnight success. And what I was doing 8 to 10 years ago is only now really taking hold, just on a global scale. And that's okay. But I would hope that everyone out there, it's hard to hear that. And I don't know, some people's roads are a lot quicker and faster, but for my road, and most of the time, it just takes a lot longer. So you got to be committed, and you really have to understand that this is this is going to be it's a long-term thing. And yeah, like, I think I was a little, whatever the word that I'm trying to think right now, but I was a little too, I'd be disappointed if things didn't happen so quickly. And that the problem is, if you're thinking that way, you're not seeing the lessons and able to adjust quickly to then move forward. And so you're stuck in this thing because you're not seeing those. Yeah, so I'd say those are two big ones right there.
Yeah, I think you nailed both of them. Like, if you think about it, knowing your audience, testing the market, but being able to be nimble and pivot, right, as quickly as possible
Mm-hmm.
as a startup, right? Because your ideal customer, you think during your business plan, is really not your ones that pay the bills, right? Like subscribe, and then you're finding out who your true audience is, right? And then you just have to quickly adapt and change over your marketing strategy, etc. So number one, that was definitely good. And then number two, I mean, timing. And the challenge is, in today's society and world, everyone wants things yesterday, right?
Yeah.
With the advent of the internet and social media and now instant, that's where everything, when there's people promoting like you can do this, you can be successful in 100 days or 10 days or whatever, like they sell you on this dream and idea, but in reality you need to slow down and take a step back and appreciate the small steady steps into what it's going to ultimately take, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And that's what I tell a lot of entrepreneurs now is, kind of the next piece of advice after it's going to take a lot longer than you think is really identify and see those like little wins, and
Yes, and
those
appreciate.
little things
Yes.
that create momentum.
Yes.
And if you think about it, business success, obviously there's ingenuity on what you're doing. What's the concept? So do you have the problem? Are you identifying a strong problem in the world? What are solutions out there? And there might be some things wrong with them, so you're bringing a new solution. But most importantly, as you start it's never going to be the rocket ship up, just total viral spreading. That's not going to happen, unfortunately. So see the small wins and you build upon the small wins, that creates momentum. And momentum is a company's biggest best friend. It's your biggest thing, is create the momentum and allow that to grow, because the little wins then build on themselves, and they create the momentum that then creates confidence as an entrepreneur. And the confidence starts attracting more people, and people are like, I don't know what's going on with this person, but I want to work with them. I would love to work with that company. Or, man, I keep reading about them every day and social media and blah blah blah. And that is the secret right there.
Yeah. And it's consistent messaging and stay
Yes.
on course, right? Because ultimately, people who give up or fail are the ones that there's a bump in the road in the journey, right? And they give up. Like, those are the ones that, you know, how many successful business owners fail hundreds of times before that one thing that really,
Mm-hmm.
you know, bumped them over the edge. Like, that's why that 10-year journey or 5-year journey, never expect to do it in 3 months or 100. You know what I mean? Like, their expectations are so not reality, right?
Well, and I would also ask, I ask a lot of people is, well, why are you really doing this? And why are you really,
What's the
what is the
purpose?
long,
What's the
what's
passion?
the purpose and what's the long-term vision here? And my suggestion is essentially committing to a journey in life
Yeah.
around entrepreneurship and creativity.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to have 3-5 businesses over the course of your life that span different industries, but it's a commitment to a life of like bringing value to the world versus like, I'm going to make money in this thing and it's going to happen in 2 years. Like that, the purpose is flawed. Like the reasoning behind why you're doing that is flawed. And unfortunately, a lot of people and companies see through that. And then, you're not going to get through the hardships. But basically for me, it's like, this is my life, and for better or for worse, this is what I do now. And I think when you commit literally that strongly, which is like, that's why part of why I went on this world tour and I'm traveling around, is like, this is my life. So I'm cool with it taking a little longer because I'm going to hopefully be here a while.
Yeah. And you're like passionate with what you're doing. Like, you're clear, right, on
Yeah.
why you're doing it in the first place, right? And
Oh yeah.
it may take a little bit longer, but it's fine. It's not a race, right? And a lot of people in tech, right, especially the startup communities, they want 10x or 15, 20x, right? And an exit. And yeah, for investors, it makes sense. But for you as a business owner, should you even be in that whole space, or try to do it yourself, right? And take the time, because they're in it for a different purpose, right? So that's why the speed is the big thing for a lot of these startups, right?
And I think, thinking, let's go back to some of the things that we previously talked about. And it's so hard, it's really difficult because, as a ownership team and as a founder, CEO, you're asked a lot of times, especially from investors, like, what's the exit? And of course you need to have an idea
Yeah.
of the end result of, what's the end game for this venture. And that there's no right answer except the answer that you have created is then the investor is just looking, saying, is this a good alignment? But I think what's frustrating is, on the flip side, it gets troublesome when the person is, we're going to flip it in 3 years and blah blah blah, and that's what they're building for. So then it's inauthentic, and it's actually, it's actually not going to be as organic, and I think as I guess the best outcome possible, because they're too focused on this short-term thinking. And great exits, multiples. So when you say 8x, 10x, we're talking about multiples of valuation or multiples upon revenue, which turns out to be the valuation of the final price if your company gets acquired. That is a byproduct of creating a great business, right? And acquisitions come, or opportunities to liquidate through a merger and acquisition or an IPO. Those are byproducts of creating a great business. So if you have a vision 10, 20, 30 years out in the future, the byproduct of the acquisition that might happen is just out there. It's out there somewhere. So don't focus on that. Focus on your vision and your big, what we call it, big, hairy, audacious goal. That's like 10, 20 years in the future. And if you do get an opportunity for an exit, it will be presented and you can have the option to take it or not. So I think like that's the, being too hyper focused on, I'm going to make a ton of money and we're going to sell in 2 years. That's your value is off.
Yeah. I think you nailed a couple of things there. I think the first one is you're the one that puts too much stress on yourself, right? So
yes,
these goals and lofty things that you think these investors want, you're the ones putting it on yourself. And then you're stressing over it on a daily basis, even to try to achieve something that's probably not even realistic. And these investors know it's not realistic, yet you're trying to do it and satisfy them, right?
mm-hmm.
It's like detrimental to yourself. And once you are clear and concise into like, why are you doing this in the first place? What's the ultimate reason you want to grow this or make that exit? Like, you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't, because a lot of people aren't clear as why they're doing what they're doing in the first place. There has to be a passion. There has to be a reason why you started this business and built this company, right? But be really clear on why and what the whole purpose is, like the end game.
Yeah. And I would suggest, this is just my personal opinion and a lot of the people that I talk to, but have a why that has a greater connection to the world or a purpose that is outside any number of financial gain.
Yep.
And happenstance, and naturally the financial will follow. Yep. Like that is the key. And it doesn't matter if you have a localized business like a coffee shop or cupcakes, or you have a global platform and system like Founders Live is, that we're pretty much on every continent almost. It doesn't matter. Like, have a general vision and something that impacts the world in a way that you can almost never achieve. So you're always pursuing that. And then financially, obviously have milestones and goals in places for the business. But those are byproducts of great business.
Yeah. And making impact, right? It could be on a local scale, just a community even, right? Like a local coffee
mm-hmm.
shop or a dentist. You take care of your people. You take care of
exactly.
your tribe, and you want to be a part of it, right? And you want to earn that respect. So it's the same thing for any tech companies or any business owner or entrepreneur, right? So, depending on which direction you want, I guess, because a lot of business owners just might not be tech savvy either, right? So they want that small bricks and mortar relationship type of service.
Yeah,
sure. And they're happy, and that's good enough for them, right? And
mm-hmm.
That impact, it still hits a lot of people because thousands of people they service on an annual basis. That's a huge impact, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree.
So I wanted to ask you, so in terms of advice, I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are thinking of starting, and you've been doing it for many, many years, right? Can you give some guidance in terms of like some tips, or when people are thinking of starting, what should you really do? Versus, I know you talked about like understanding your why and your purpose, but is there any other fundamental tips that you could have taken or done when you started that you didn't take?
Well, yeah, I mean, some of it I did, some of it I didn't do, but yeah, I would say if you're just starting out and you have that feeling of, yeah, I really want to go do this, and I believe that I can make something happen. I think first step is really get around others and get in the community, and it's partly why we created Founders Live, is to create a space not only virtually, so you can meet people from many different countries on Founders Live, but go to things and events and meetups and things like Founders Live in your city, and get around the people doing it, because you're going to start picking up energy and the way that they talk and the way that they think. So just step one, get around the right people. you will start to find maybe some advisors, or, even at some point a co-founder or a business partner. Step two, start to look at problems in the world. And what I've noticed in the success of people is not just it's not just like, hey, I had this idea in the shower and we're going to create this thing. I think the next step is really going out and looking at problems in the world and starting to figure out some unique solutions and testing them. So you test things on a very light level, and this is why you get in the community, is they'll start talking about that. And when you have events that you can go and you can be on to Founders Live, and we have educational things, or in your physical community, you can start learning what are the next steps to get going. But what they're going to tell you is, find some problems in the world and go out and test very cheaply and cost effectively your solution. And so you want to get feedback from the market of that. And so that, rather than spending a year and $100,000 or $500,000 on building something, actually spend a couple $100 in, a month, and learn if it's actually something that the market and people would want to use. Yeah. That's a huge thing. Thirdly, is, we've already talked about this, is, really starting to get around, create your initial team of either, team members and or advisors. And so start syncing around you people that can be honest and tell you when you're wrong or not thinking correctly. Then they can help you and lead you to the next connections. And then, as a team, you want to build your initial team. So is it like, if you're a business person, and if you're in the technology or doing something with technology, you want to surround yourself with probably someone that can develop and build software, or whatever the solution you're building. But just finding your immediate.
So what areas? That last one is just start building your team and surround yourself with the people that can take you to the next level. And some of that is technology based. Some of that is advisory, helping with financials or how to pitch investors, that sort of thing. But I think that those things right there, think about everything I just said there is things you can do with low to zero money and just getting going in your community. That's the first steps.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest barrier for a lot of startups or even entrepreneurs thinking of starting, right? Like, you have a lot of time and not a lot of resources. So go out there, network, go out to events, surround yourself with like-minded people, kind of people that you feel like are successful, and gravitate towards them. Ask questions, because what I've also found is a lot of people that are successful, they're the ones that are the best and most giving kind of people, individuals, right? And they don't mind helping a fellow entrepreneur, right? They're the ones that will give the time, and time is of the essence, right? And any valuable insight from these people is great.
Yeah, that's why we built Founders Live, man. It's exactly why.
No, that's awesome. And that's a great initiative, right? Like, the big thing is community. Look for people that are kind of like-minded like you, right? Like, you might be an introvert, right? And so there are other places, and it could be digital, it could be other platforms, right? If you're not comfortable in a live environment, right? There's other places that you can find people that have the same kind of, vision or ideas, and you can bounce things around, right? But you have to get out of your comfort zone, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because you can't do everything yourself and have other people help you if you're not even willing to share any of the information or problems that you're facing, right?
Totally. Yep.
So another question I was going to ask you. So I know, as you've been in it for about 10 years, but prior to that, even smartphones wasn't that prevalent, right? Internet wasn't even fast. It was probably dial-up when you started. Technology has moved so quickly over the last couple years, right? How has that changed and impacted and helped your business grow?
Yeah, it's just, I think flat out, we hold computers in our pockets now. Yeah. And for better, for worse, we're connected 24/7. And so building a next generation system is really taking that into consideration, which is like, you know, Founders Live in general is more mobile, whether it's an app experience, you know, you experience an app or on your on the web on your device. But, you know, we are a mobile platform first, and then the desktop, you know, kind of is there as well. And, you know, that is front and center as I build Founders Live out into this global system that reaches, I mean, we're spreading around Africa, and you better believe that in Africa, they pretty much experience the internet on a mobile device. Very few or very little is it on a desktop, either a laptop or a full desktop. So, you know, that is absolutely front and center whenever I think strategy, whenever I think the future and what we're building, it is 100% focused on what mobile will be and can do. And when we also have 5G coming out here in the next, you know, handful of years, I don't know when it's fully, you know, or how soon it'll be, but, you know, they're saying that those speeds are, I mean, so much, it's X amount of times faster than we have right now. So assume in the business world that things will continue to speed up. What can you do when there's 5G that you might start planning on and building now, so when it hits, you've already deployed that? And so I think that that's really, really important. You know, I always do want to hesitate or at least bring up, you know, I don't know if this is all good, right? The ever speeding and increase of technology is bringing forth some challenging times and some very difficult just things to, you know, whether it's the privacy and information that is going around now to just like literally human. I watch whenever I'm on a public transport, like a bus or a subway, dude, I watch people all the time, and it's fascinating to see that we're just these like
slaves to our smartphones.
dude, and you know, look, I listen to music a lot when I walk around the city, and I'm the same way, but damn it, you know, like, why we're here, we're at this place, and I don't know if it's either making us tremendously smarter or it's actually not making us smarter in various ways. And so, you know, that's something that I keep in consideration, but geez, you know, you can't swim upstream on this. And so I definitely, you know, look at advancement technology and understand how to place my business on that wave.
Yeah. I mean, with technology, even like the Zoom call that we're having right now, I mean, that didn't exist even 5 years ago, right? Like there's so much advancements, and it allows you to scale your business, grow your business, and do so much in terms of a global scale, right? Like you're hitting so many more people and impacting way more than you've ever done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can
And I think,
definitely
you know,
make a huge impact.
yeah. And the lesson is, you know, depending on, no matter what industry you're in, if you are focused on a local business and more in just one city and, you know, a smaller business, you can still start thinking about, okay, the majority of my customers, if not all of them, have, you know, a smartphone and a connected device with them all the time. How can I make the connection with them better, more meaningful, easier to transact, those sort of things, you know, because that, like it or not, that's what people look at now in businesses and in the city. You know, they're like, you know, do they take Apple Pay? Maybe, you know, is that an important thing? Do they accept, you know, I don't know if you noticed this, but man, because I've been in so many cities in the last year, the difference between certain checkout and payment terminals, and I'm seeing a lot more Square, and maybe Clover's one of them too. But man, just the amount of time in seconds does it take to close out my transaction. I notice that now, and you know, that's just small companies taking advantage of new technology to make my customer experience better. So that's, I just noticed that stuff. And so these are the things that you think about when you're building your company and actually running your business. What aspects of technology can I use now? Where is it going? And how do I get in front of that?
Yeah. I think the good thing that you're able to do is travel and experience different cities, countries, and their trouble points, right? Pain points or their daily interactions. And that's how you spot opportunity, right? Someone that's a local business might not be, foreign to any new stuff that comes out. So you got to go out and navigate and figure things out yourself. But again, there's, pros and cons to technology, because I look at how fast things have gone, the speed, and human interaction is not the same anymore. People are in front of video game consoles for days or hours. Like I was watching Fortnite 2 weekends ago. It was down for a weekend, right? And I was like, I'm not a gamer, I don't play, but I heard on the radio, like, people just went crazy because they were so used to playing games. And when it was down for X amount of hours, they didn't know what to do with all their free time, right? It's crazy because, people consume this at so high of a rate now. And I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing with
Oh man,
their
yeah.
life, right?
How about get outside? how about move a little? I mean, that's huge for me. Is I maintain. I just I'm healthy. I run 3-4 days a week. I'm not crazy, and I'm not like in the gym every day and blah blah blah. But geez, like that to me, kind of what the negative I just said is, we have to keep the understanding human nature in positive and negative. But man, like, the more you're going to use technology and being sedentary, the more it's important to be outside and move and maintain your health. Yeah. Those go hand in hand. And, so just being aware of that.
Yeah. I kind of, I'm not big into social media myself. So I am, after when my son gets home from school, I actually turn off my phone and I'm present with him, right?
That's
And I
very good.
actually just, like, work can always wait. And what's the worst that can happen, right? Like, really, life or death? No, not really, right? Like, we live in this now society, and it's all instant messaging and emails popping out and social media feeds. And you think people want things right away, but is it really that urgent? No, right? Like, that's where I kind of take, like, last couple of years I've been self-reflecting, and I spent more time taking care of myself, my family, close relationships, and I found that I'm way more less stressed. Yeah. And I enjoy life way more, because the fast pace that I was kind of living, it just was not healthy.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you recognize that, and I'm the same way. It just it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of just self-control and realizing, like, okay, time to check out and go live my life in a different way right now. And so it's good.
No, it's great.
Yeah, I kind of need to get going here. So it's been really, really fun, man. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yeah, I just want one last question, and
Yeah.
then you can give your info. But aside from business now, so it seems like your business is doing and thriving. What are some of the other pillars that really drive you? Like, you mentioned your health is such a big thing, and you're trying to build this community, right, for your business. But, like, is there other pillars outside of work? Because it sounds like
it's good, really good question. I would say, I would say definitely health is up there as probably the number one. And like I said, I'm not maniacal about it, but especially, traveling and being in a lot of different cities, I make sure that I get out and run, and I'm active on a more often than not in the day. Secondly, I would say meditation, or what your, just spiritual and just like higher thinking is a very important thing. I do that almost every morning. And that can come and go, or be challenging or easy sometimes, but just maintaining a more higher level spiritual connection to the world, that's important. Thirdly, friends, for sure, making sure that I spend time with the people that are important to me, and that I'll also, the kind of two here is, just quality friends and people that have no association with my company or Founders Live, startup world. And those are like old friends. And then also, myself being friends with people in the industry, as well as like mentoring and advising. I make sure that I spend some time in that. Obviously family is a big one. So making sure that I'm spending time with family and staying connected there. Yeah. And, I think outside of that, look, we only have 24 hours in the day, and it's, there's a lot of things you have to say no to. So, I don't watch a ton of TV. I actually don't turn on TVs very often, probably only to watch games. So that's cool.
Yeah.
But, I don't sit and watch TV. I'm spending time in work or spending time with friends, or I'm really just trying to like get outside and not be connected.
That's amazing. And that's what I've kind of done too. Like I stopped that social of TV shows or social media. It's just living present with everything I do. Right.
Absolutely.
So how do some of our listeners get a hold of you? How
Yeah.
can they reach you? And
For sure. You can find me on LinkedIn if you just type in Nick Hughes. I'm going to pop up. I have a blue shirt in my picture, so you'll probably see that. You can find me on Founders Live. If you join Founders Live, I'm going to be pretty active on there. I'm on Twitter as well. Facebook and Instagram, a little less, definitely not as prevalent on there. So you can, just pretty much any one of those platforms, search and find. And then, love to hear from any of you. So
okay,
feel free to
perfect. Well, really appreciate your time, Nick. And if you're ever in Toronto, feel free to reach out. Let me know, because we'll definitely get together.
Absolutely. And keep an eye out. We have Founders Live Toronto as well, which I will look to connect you with our team over there, and maybe
perfect.
More ingrained. Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate your time, Nick. And hopefully you had fun.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you.